Hello, my name is Emma, and at 33 years old, I find myself immersed in an office job that demands much of my focus. Lately, all of my friends have been tying the knot one by one, and the expense of wedding gifts has been mounting. This parade of marriages made me feel a growing pressure to find a partner, so I began dating more actively. Emma, when are you going to give me grandkids? This question from my dad, Paul, greeted me each time I visited home. It always made me uncomfortable, prompting me to reduce the frequency of my visits. Having lost my mom at a young age, I was raised by my dad, my brother, and my grandparents. My brother married young and settled close to our childhood home, where he now lives with his 3 daughters, my beloved nieces. Despite this, my dad and I often debated whether having nieces was enough for me. Tragedy struck when my dad was involved in a severe car accident. By the time I got to the hospital, he was in critical condition and passed away quietly with my brother's family and me by his side. "Dad, I wanted you to meet someone," I whispered. I had recently gotten engaged to Jack, a man a friend introduced me to, who had just proposed. Jack was a bit of a show-off, but genuinely kind. With both my parents gone and my brother occupied with his own family, I felt a profound sense of loneliness. As I sat petting my cat Kelly after returning from the funeral, I murmured, "It does feel lonely, doesn't it?" Jack, sensing my sadness, took my hand and reassured me, "Emma, you're not alone. You're part of my family now." His concern was touching, and he often checked on me, making me think that perhaps I could still find simple happiness. However, life had more in store for me. When I first visited Jack's bustling family home for a gathering, I met his mother, Samantha, who was lively and outspoken. I walked in feeling nervous, expecting only to meet his parents, but the house was lively and full of people, adding to my anxiety, yet also hinting at new beginnings. At Jack's family home, I was introduced to a bustling household that included his in-laws, step-grandparents, his brother Henry, Henry's wife Amy, and their kids, Brian and Mason. "Nice to meet you all," I greeted them, taken aback by the size of the group. The house, a creation of Jack's father, Billy, showed signs of age but held a warm, inviting atmosphere that eased my initial nervousness. On the drive back, I couldn't help but comment on the large gathering. "Christmas or Thanksgiving must be quite the event," I remarked. Jack chuckled in response. "It's always crowded." "Can you believe they live like this every day?" I was surprised to learn that what I assumed was just a setting for large family gatherings was actually their everyday living arrangement. 10 people in that house, wow, Jack noted. Originally, it was just supposed to be his in-laws and step-grandparents living there, but Henry, who struggled to keep a job, moved in with Amy and their kids without prior discussion. "Henry will probably move out once he finds a job," Jack added with a laugh, suggesting a temporary arrangement that had become permanent. At that time, I thought these were just temporary family challenges. After marrying Jack, we settled into a quieter life in our own home, just the 2 of us and our cat, Kelly. Jack was handy around the house, and Kelly seemed to enjoy our company. Meanwhile, Henry and his family continued to live in the crowded family home, where the walls were adorned with children's artwork. Samantha, ever the optimist, mentioned she had given up trying to keep the walls clean. Amy, who was close to my age, always appeared exhausted, yet maintained a strong spirit. She and I quickly became friends. During visits, I noticed that it was usually Amy and I bustling around. "Hey, Amy, hurry up!" "Emma, don't just stand there. We're out of beer," someone would call out, and we'd spring into action. It felt as though we were the only ones ever moving, constantly busy, which made me ponder if this would be my fate too. But the thought of Amy enduring this daily was daunting. Despite her fatigue, Amy worked full-time to compensate for Henry's lack of employment. After many such observations, I hesitantly asked her one day, "Have you thought about leaving him?" She sighed. "I've thought about it. It's tough. We have kids, and he used to be kind." Her response made me reflect on the complexities of her situation. Seeing no good in Henry from my perspective, I wondered about the strength it took for her to continue day after day. When Jack suggested we build our own house, I was both surprised and thrilled. I had always harbored a secret dream of living in a charming house straight out of a storybook, complete with a white dog frolicking in the yard, though I had never shared this with anyone. When I finally confided this vision to Jack, his enthusiastic response, "That sounds great," filled me with excitement. We spent many weekends touring model homes and selecting a builder, and a year later, our dream home was completed. "We need to keep up with the mortgage," Jack mentioned one day. "Definitely," I agreed, my smile reflecting the pride and joy in our new beginning. The first weekend in our new abode brought Jack's family over for a housewarming celebration. "Here, Wayne, give them the gift. We're coming in. Oh, what a nice house," Samantha exclaimed, her happiness making it seem as though she felt at home. I managed a polite smile as Wayne handed me 3 cans of beer, appearing as if he'd just picked them up. During the party, Henry meandered into our bedroom and, declaring, "This bed is so comfy," proceeded to jump on it with the kids in tow. Their excitement mounted as they discovered our cat, Kelly. "Look, there's a cat," they shouted, chasing her until she, overwhelmed by the commotion, hid in the back of the room. Poor Kelly, I thought, seeing her distress. As the party continued, I noticed Jack and Henry were fully engaged in the festivities. Meanwhile, Amy, looking apologetic, approached me. "Samantha wants appetizers soon. Can I use your kitchen? And sorry about scaring Kelly," she said. Observing her, I wondered how someone as considerate as Amy could stay with Henry. I felt a sisterly affection towards her and reassured, "I'll take care of it, Amy. You relax." Yet, she insisted on helping with the cooking while managing the children. The step-grandparents, in contrast, were a quiet presence, almost like statues, seldom speaking but occasionally commenting, "Nice home, right, Billy?" To which Billy would reply apologetically, "Yeah, sorry for the noise." It was clear that among the lively in-laws, the step-grandparents were the calm ones. As the weekends rolled by, Jack's family began visiting almost every weekend, their parties stretching loud and late into the night. The house that was meant to be our sanctuary began to feel more like the crowded family home Jack grew up in. Each raucous weekend reminded me how the lines between solitude and family space were being blurred, with our peaceful home turning into the new hub for endless gatherings. As the days unfolded in our new home, the situation became increasingly challenging. Despite only having hosted the in-laws since the housewarming, they seemed to have no qualms about putting me to work. This, combined with growing neighborhood complaints and even a police visit, ramped up my stress levels significantly. During this period, Jack began to reveal aspects of his personality that I hadn't seen before. One evening, while I was under the weather and unable to cook, I asked him to pick up some dinner. He returned with hamburgers. "I can't eat this right now," I said weakly. Rather than understanding my plight, Jack retorted, "You need to eat to get better, Emma." If I had the strength to eat a hamburger, I wouldn't have asked for help, I thought silently to myself. Recalling a time when Jack was ill, I had jokingly offered him a hamburger, to which he responded angrily, calling it ridiculous. This series of events made it clear that the family often acted selfishly and lacked empathy. I found myself wishing for a reality check for them, a smirk crossing my face as I pondered, "Enjoy your freedom while you can. You'll get what you deserve." A few days later, as I prepared for a business trip, I announced my departure to Jack with a cheerful, "I'm off," to which he replied, noting Amy was also away on business, "Is your trip today?" What a coincidence. His tone carried a mocking edge that didn't sit well with me. While I was away, the days flew by, and soon news of a typhoon reached me. I contacted Jack to inquire about the situation. "We're okay, but the family home has some serious leaks," he reported. I wasn't surprised, given the house's condition. Upon my return, as I walked from the bus stop, Laughter and noise echoed through the neighborhood. It sounded like a large gathering, perhaps a barbecue? Curious and slightly alarmed, I approached our home. The noise grew louder. As I cautiously opened the door, I was greeted by a chaotic scene. Bags piled up in the entrance, graffiti on the walls, and a drunken Jack who slurred, "Hey Emma, welcome back." The living room was a mess, with drunken in-laws and Henry sprawled around, while Amy, ever the caretaker, busied herself in the kitchen. The step-grandparents sat quietly amidst the turmoil, looking out of place in the loud, unruly gathering. It was clear the boundaries of our home had been overstepped during my absence, turning what was once a sanctuary into just another extension of the chaotic family home I had hoped to leave behind. I returned to a scene of utter chaos in our once pristine home. Kids were drawing on the walls, and amidst the crowd was a woman I didn't recognize. Trying to maintain my composure, I asked Jack, "What's going on here?" "Didn't I tell you? The family home had leaks, so they're staying here for a while," Jack explained as if it was the most normal thing in the world. "Why don't we just live here?" he suggested proudly. The in-laws chimed in, cheerful and unfazed. "It's okay, we're family. We have extra rooms, no problem. Don't worry, Emma, the walls got a bit dirty, but it's just kids' stuff," Henry added casually. My eyes then caught the unknown woman lounging on the sofa, engrossed in her phone. "And who is that?" I inquired, pointing towards her. "Oh, that's Karen, a friend of me and Amy," Jack replied, as if introducing her was an afterthought. Karen looked up, smiling. "Yes, that's right. I got kicked out by my parents, and Jack said I could stay. Thanks in advance," she said, her casualness adding to my growing disbelief. Our not-so-large living room was now crowded with 10 adults and 3 children, the walls a canvas of scribbles. Far from the fresh start this house was meant to be. The noise level was akin to a dormitory. My patience snapped, "Seriously, 10 people is too many. Are you guys planning to start a baseball team or something?" Then a sudden fear struck me. "Hey, where's Kelly?" I asked, looking around for our cat. "Dad opened the window to smoke and Kelly ran away," Brian said innocently. Henry glared at him. "What were you thinking?" The loss of our pet and the cavalier attitude toward everything happening pushed me to the edge. Tears welled up as I confronted Jack. "It's just a cat? We can get another one?" "If you're unhappy, we can just get divorced," Jack retorted disdainfully. "You said divorce?" I echoed incredulous. "Yes, I did." "I might not if you apologize," he said, his confidence grating on me. "Oh, really? Well then, here, write this," I said, slamming down the divorce papers I had prepared. My part was already filled out. I retrieved my bags from my room. "Why haven't you written anything yet?" I demanded coolly. "I'm busy," Jack replied, taken aback by my resolve. Samantha, angered and defensive of her son, exclaimed, "Jack, just divorce her already. We've built the house, so she's useless now." Realizing too late the depth of their entitlement and disrespect, Jack muttered, "You'll regret this." But there was no regret on my horizon, only the clear, unwavering path to reclaiming my freedom and dignity. In the chaos of our disrupted lives, as Jack's family overstayed their welcome in our home, my resolve hardened. "You're the one who'll struggle. Just write the papers," I asserted, handing the divorce documents to Henry, who scoffed in disbelief. "When did I marry you?" he joked, looking down at the paperwork where the section for the wife's details was filled. Meanwhile, Amy, who had endured enough, declared her intent to Henry. "I'm divorcing you right now," she stated with a firm resolve that silenced the room. Henry, flustered, retorted, "Amy bites the hand that feeds you." But his words were empty. From my perspective, Amy had been nothing short of a servant in her own home, her earnings largely commandeered by Henry to fund his whims, leaving scant for their actual needs. Worse yet, the woman casually integrated into our gathering was revealed to be Henry's mistress. "Emma, I think my husband is cheating," Amy had confided to me before these events. She had endured much for her children, but when Henry began selling their possessions, it was the last straw. We planned our divorces together, Amy discreetly gathering evidence of his affair. Her so-called business trip had been a ruse to uncover the truth. Like me, Amy had little family support, but fortunately, a friend in another state offered her a job, a way out, and a fresh start. Our preparations were smooth, and our resolve was unwavering. "I want to get out of that hellish house," Amy had declared, her determination as clear as glass. Knowing it would look suspicious to leave together, Amy went back first and soon relayed the distressing news of the takeover at my house and Henry's mistress moving in. "All our actions until now were a performance," I told her, resolute. "We're not living there anymore. Let the kids draw on the walls all they want," I reassured her, signaling our final detachment from the chaos. Henry, perhaps thinking he could now live openly with his mistress, signed the divorce papers without protest. "Let's go, Amy, Billy, and everyone," Amy called out. The step-grandparents, who had been quietly suffering the financial exploitation from the in-laws, stood up and followed Amy and her children to the door. "Living with people like you, I had given up on life," Billy said, glaring at the family as he left with his great-grandchildren. As we departed, leaving behind the dysfunctional household, we exchanged no pleasantries, only a succinct, "Well then, take care." "You'll regret this," the family laughed as we walked away, but our spirits were unbroken, lifted by the prospect of freedom and the start of a new chapter without the weight of their deceit and exploitation. Months after I had walked away from a tumultuous marriage and a chaotic household, my phone rang with an unexpected call. It was Jack. I realized I had forgotten to block his number. Anticipating the desperation in his voice, I answered the call. "Emma, come back," Jack pleaded, his voice tinged with urgency. I almost laughed. "Come back?" "We're strangers now," I replied calmly. "Let me talk, Emma." "Why aren't you paying the mortgage?" It was Samantha now, her voice sharp, probably snatching the phone from Jack in her frustration. "What are you talking about? I have no idea." I feigned ignorance while Samantha sounded increasingly agitated. Apparently, the mortgage payments for the house had fallen behind since the last month. When I pressed Jack, he tried to blame it on me, claiming I hadn't been keeping up with the payments. Samantha's voice then machine-gunned through the phone, spilling details of their financial expectations and shortcomings. "First of all, this house, you guys had a combined income of $880,000, right? We could have built a better house. We built this as a new home, but it's not what we expected," she lamented. I knew from Amy that they had planned to take over the house, thinking they could manage it financially. "Yes, that's true, but with Jack's $22,000 salary, the bank wouldn't lend us more. If we had taken a joint mortgage, maybe we could have gotten a better house," Samantha continued, revealing financial strains I was already aware of. As Jack and Samantha argued in the background, I quietly ended the call and finally blocked his number. Throughout our marriage, Jack had always tried to impress others, a trait that extended to his desire to handle the mortgage solo, influenced by a story I once told him about a friend's husband who got a mortgage on his own. Eager to show off, Jack opted for a solo mortgage without disclosing the full financial picture to his family. The house, designed to Jack's taste, held no sentimental value for me. My main goal had been to help Amy escape that environment, which I viewed as my true victory. Jack's attempt to impress had backfired. Now he was saddled with a mortgage he couldn't afford, and I had left him to deal with the financial mess as a form of retribution. In the aftermath, they failed to keep up with the mortgage payments, and eventually, the new house was repossessed. This twist of fate didn't surprise me. Free from the ties that had bound me to that chaotic life, I focused on rebuilding my peace, knowing Amy and I had both found our escapes. The state of the house post-divorce was far from the pristine condition one would expect from a recently built property. The walls were discolored with yellow stains from cigarette smoke, courtesy of Henry and his mistress, and scribbles marred every surface, leaving the place looking neglected and worn. Jack found himself needing to downsize significantly due to the financial fallout, renting a cheap apartment where Wayne and Samantha eventually moved in with him. I imagined they would cling to him indefinitely, like unwanted guests who never planned to leave. As for me, the ties to that chaotic part of my life had been cut. The former in-laws were strangers now, their presence in my life nothing more than a distant, unpleasant memory. The only solace was that the children were spared from the worst of the drama. Amy, now Henry's ex-wife, managed to secure alimony with the help of a lawyer. Though she initially had to borrow money to cover her legal fees, she was able to repay it swiftly, a testament to her resilience and determination to move forward. Henry and his mistress, on the other hand, faced social ostracization and eventually disappeared, leaving behind a trail of unpaid debts. Their community's disapproval confirmed their untrustworthy nature. Amy found a new beginning, working at a friend's business where she could finally provide a stable and happy environment for her children. They too were thriving, which gave me hope that they could find the peace and happiness they deserved. Meanwhile, Billy, freed from the burdens of their old life, sold the family home and moved to a distant location to enjoy their retirement with the savings they had managed to salvage. In my own life, changes were also afoot. I requested a transfer to a local office to reduce my daily stress and focus on rebuilding my future. Through a fortunate twist facilitated by social media, I was reunited with Kelly, my cat, who had been found and cared for by a neighbor. It was a joy to have her friendly presence in my life again. Now I reside quietly in my late father's house with my brother's blessing, diligently saving to build my dream home. I cherish the hope of one day introducing someone special at my father's grave, a personal milestone I am steadily working towards. My days are now filled with purpose and the quiet satisfaction of moving toward a future I once only dreamed of.